I had a great job as a primary care physician, very close to home. I had a great commute, great salary, wonderful coworkers, and a wonderful group of patients that I got to know and love. What prompted me to decide to take a 75% pay cut and uproot my family when I had such a stable environment in my career? I forgot to mention that I also had over $200,000 in student loan debt at the time when I decided to take this huge pay cut. My name is Varsha, and I'm a full-time palliative care doctor, wife, mom of 3, and I'm here to tell you what exactly was my thought process with making such a drastic change in our lives and taking a huge risk. So let me start from the beginning, and I'm going to dive right in. I started my first job out of medical residency as a hospitalist doctor. What that means is that I worked in the field of internal medicine and treated only adult patients in a hospital setting. My schedule at the time was 7 days on and 7 days off, which meant that I worked 12-hour shifts for 7 days in a row. Brutal, I know. So I did that for a while, and once I had my first child, I realized that that kind of schedule was no longer serving my family because I rarely got to see my daughter on the days that I worked, because she would go to school early in the morning, and then by the time I got home at night she was already asleep in bed. So I quickly realized after having her that I needed a different schedule really to maximize my work-life balance. So I decided to shift from only hospital medicine to outpatient primary care in the office setting. This worked out really well, even though I never thought I would do primary care when I was doing medical training, because at that time I felt that the pace of the job and the types of medical problems that I was treating were not my favorite. However, once I started this new job, I came to really develop relationships with the patients that I got to see over and over again, and that's not something I typically got to do in the hospital, because most of the time those patients come to the hospital, they're sick, their problem gets better, and they go home. So I started this new job and it was going great. I was able to commute only 10 minutes, whereas before my commute was over 30 to 40 minutes. I was able to even exercise early in the morning because I lived so close to the office. I decided to join a boot camp in the morning, which I absolutely loved, and then I had plenty of time to come home, get ready, and go to work without feeling rushed. Then my schedule was also better in terms of it was a normal Monday to Friday schedule. I had a half day off once a week for other administrative duties and tasks, and I got to see my family every day, and I had weekends off. This was working out really well for us. And then I decided to shift away from that and go into a new field of medicine, which required that I enter a medical fellowship. What is a medical fellowship? A medical fellowship is additional training past your initial residency that allows you to go into a more specialized field. For example, if you did your residency in internal medicine, which is learning about all the organ systems for adult patients only, then you can further specialize into an organ system. Cardiologists specialize in the heart. GI specialists specialize in the GI tract and digestive problems. Endocrinologists specialize in things like diabetes, thyroid disease, and other endocrine disorders. And my choice was to go into the field of palliative medicine. So I'm not going to delve into what is palliative care or palliative medicine in detail here, but I will go into that in another video. So stay tuned for that. But I had known that I wanted to be a palliative care physician even as a medical resident. I didn't go directly into fellowship at the time because I knew that I had a lot of barriers to that. First of all, you have to apply early enough to get into fellowship right when you leave residency, and that timing didn't work out for me at the time. Secondly, I figured that I can just work for a few years, get more experience under my belt, and really get the bread and butter and basics of medicine in the hospital down pat before I go into a more specialized field of palliative care, in which we still need to know about all the disease processes and be able to have complex decisions with patients about those diseases in a more serious illness setting. I was able to do that initially by the years that I worked, a total of 4.5 or so in hospital medicine and primary care combined. And at that point, I decided to enter the application process for medical fellowship. Thankfully, after a few different fellowship interviews all across the country, ranging from Arizona all the way to Florida, I luckily matched into a wonderful program. It was going to be in a different state, and I knew that was likely going to be the case because with any fellowship, it's very competitive and you're kind of at the mercy of where the match process matches you with which program. By December of that year, I knew that we would be selling our house and moving out of state to start this new fellowship journey. How did I feel comfortable taking this risk? Well, I wasn't completely comfortable, but I knew that it was going to be very temporary. The fellowship program is only 1 year, and most fellowships are in the range of 1 to 3 years. So I knew it would be very temporary, that we could do anything for 1 year, and I knew that in the process of selling our first home, we would use a bulk of that money from the house sale to go towards my student loan debts. That was a major goal of ours all along. I had been paying monthly payments for my student loans all along since graduating medical school back in 2010, but now this was going to be the opportunity to throw a large chunk of cash at that debt and knock it down significantly. So I knew that yes, we would be losing a lot, so to speak, in terms of we lost the first house that we ever owned. We didn't really think we were going to move out of that house that quickly, obviously, because we bought such a large home for us to grow into. But through that process, we were able to significantly cut down student loan debt. After the process of putting our house on the market and finally getting a sale, then quickly after that, we had our second baby, and 2 weeks later, we were on our way to South Carolina for me to start my fellowship program. I had about 4 or 5 weeks in between to kind of get settled into our new home, which at the time was a rental home. And you might be wondering, well, if you were trying to save money and you knew you were going to have such a drastic cut in your pay and salary, why not opt for something like an apartment rather than a house? Well, honestly, there wasn't a huge price difference between those two options, and we needed a lot more space because my husband was working from home, needed an office for himself, and he was taking online classes for his MBA. Plus, we had my mother-in-law living with us to help us out with the baby for the first few months of her life before she would then start daycare. So we needed the extra space that an apartment just wouldn't afford at the time. That was the journey from deciding to go into fellowship to then selling our home and moving states to start that process. Besides the reduction in my student loan debt, other benefits did we have from taking this significant pay cut? Well, for one thing, it allowed me to pursue my true passion in the field of medicine. I knew that palliative care was a field I wanted to go into, whether it was right after residency, which really couldn't happen, or even 10 years down the road, which was my initial plan. I had wanted to work for that amount of time, pay off my student loan debt, and then go back into fellowship at a time when I would be more financially able to tolerate that kind of a pay cut. But doing so earlier actually worked out in our favor because we did grow our family by 2 more children, so we now have 3 kids. And even though my student loans are now paid off, this may not have been the best time to then think about a pay cut, having 3 children, daycare payments, car payments, mortgage, etc., to go back into fellowship. Also, there's no guarantee that the fellowship you're going to go into is going to be in your same location where you currently live. So if you matched across the country, then you then have to uproot your kids to do all that. That fellowship decision and that pay cut did lead me to still enter my field of choice in my career in medicine. Additionally, it brought about this new opportunity for a brand new adventure. At first, it was very scary. I was, truth be told, very sad to be leaving our initial house because I thought that we would be growing our family into that house and staying there for many, many years. But we got to know and love the city that we moved to very well. We explored the city very often. We got to spend so much time outside and outdoors. It was a beautiful city to be in. Lots of great food, lots of activities for the kids, and I had a great work-life balance because my team really valued parenthood and having a life outside of work. They were very accommodating and supportive because I had a newborn, I was breastfeeding, I was pumping, so they let me take time away to do those things while I was at work because they knew I would get my work done and learn all the things I had to learn anyway. In that sense, taking such a drastic pay cut really taught me about the value of adventure and being open to new opportunities in life. To be clear, when I finished fellowship, I did not expect that my new job as an attending physician in palliative medicine would give me a huge salary boost. In fact, when I started my first job as a palliative care doctor, I was making less than what I had made in primary care, but I was fine with that. You know, my purpose again was not to make a higher salary. It was to be happier in my career choice and to know that every day my job was fulfilling and worthwhile and something that I wanted to get up and do every single day. I would much rather take a pay cut or be at the same salary for a long time and continue with a field that I believed in, that I value, that I think brings value to my patients, rather than to stay in the previous position for a higher salary and just be miserable, tired, and stressed out and not have any free time or see my family. And the last thing I want to mention about the benefits of taking this pay cut is that it forced us to really shift shift our mindset in terms of our finances, in terms of what we value in life. We downsized significantly from our initial house down to our rental house, so we had to learn to live with a lot less. I'm going to be talking about that topic in a different video about downsizing in your 30s and how that can really make you happier and enhance your life. But that truly helped us to learn a lot about financial balance, doing the things that matter, like developing relationships and seeking out experiences and memories with our families rather than owning things or buying things or having a huge house to live in. So I hope this video was valuable for you. If you like it or had any additional comments or wanted to know more about my story, please comment below, and I look forward to talking more about my experience with downsizing in this upcoming video.